All right, everybody, back with a brand new Cabral Concept. Can't wait to get into today's high performance health show of the week. It is going to be the number one food, the top food to eat in order to live longer. So I know that that's a bold statement, but I do plan obviously to back it up. Some great research here to share with you. So I will be providing that if you want to head on over to stevencabral.com/3338. It's interesting because we alluded to this food. We talked about this food a little bit last week. So if you tune into the Cabral Concept on a daily basis, you'll know a little bit about this, but you may not know how many times a week to eat it. And believe it or not, I'll cut right to the chase. It's only 3 times a week. That's it. And it's a small handful is all that you need. So it's pretty hard to believe that if all you need to eat is one small handful of this, right? About 5 to 10, and it is only 3 times a week, and it's a small handful, that it's going to help you live that much longer. So I didn't necessarily believe the studies either, but here's the interesting thing. When you read these studies, you can say, well, when a person eats a certain type of food, it could really be they haven't really constrained in the studies for, does a person exercise? Do they eat a low calorie diet in general? Do they live a healthier lifestyle? Do they get enough sleep at night? Do they suffer from cardiovascular disease? All of these different things. And guess what? The study actually looked at all of those specific parameters. So what was this food? It is nuts. Believe it or not, adding one small handful, I'm going to give you exactly how many to eat of about 10 to 12 different types of nuts. So you can choose your favorite, which ones seem to be best, which ones are not as great, and how many, because you can actually overeat on them. So we'll talk about that as well. So it's hard to believe, though, that a small handful of nuts, 3 to 7 times per week, after 7 servings, it starts to move back to a negative curve. Not quite, believe it or not, not quite. And you get benefits just at eating one particular serving. So I'm going to kind of link up some photos here for you. I'll put up the charts at, again, stevencabral.com/3338. But right away, I'm like looking at this graph, and immediately upon 1 serving per week, all-cause mortality goes down. And it is a very strong p-value, meaning like the significance of this clinical research is very strong. So at just 1 serving, you all of a sudden drop in terms of relative risk. And it's by about 10%, which is pretty remarkable. And then as you go down to 3 servings a week to 3.5, 4, that is where it peaks. And so you're looking at a drop of about 20%. So pretty impressive. And that doesn't include cardiovascular, which it helps even more with, but just all-cause mortality, meaning like your chances of dying from anything, cancer, dementia, cardiovascular, stroke, type 2 diabetes, all of it decreases by simply adding a handful of nuts anywhere between 3 and 7 times per week. Now, I did say as you start to increase nuts again, the relative risk starts to drop. So let me just give you an example. Not really until you get to about 6 to 7 of the full serving, which would be about 20 grams. So 20, 25 grams maximum. It averages out, if you wanted a little bit every day, it's about 12 grams a day, right? So 12 times 7 is what, 84? So about 84 grams for the week. And again, when you divide that in 3, it's 3 small handfuls. I'll give you the exact amount of nuts in just a moment. And then I'll also write them down at stevencabral.com/3338 just to make it super easy. So you can just refer back to the show if you'd like. Okay. So once you get back to, really not until you start to get to 7. Does it start then to move towards potentially just a 10% decreased risk? So you still get the decreased risk in all-cause mortality, but it's far better at 3 to 4 full servings a week, or just a small amount every single day. So that's it. Very simple, very straightforward. Now, why am I bringing this to you? Because you don't need to radically change your diet in order to get these benefits. All you're going to do is substitute literally 120 to 130 calories, because that's what about 20 grams of nuts is, 3 days a week. Now, if you'd like to do it daily, great. You'll just err on the side of a little smaller amount, about 100 grams of nuts. Are you going to eat that all by itself as a meal? No, but it could be a mid-afternoon snack, or maybe you have them and you just put them on crushed up on a salad at lunch. Maybe you put them in your smoothie for breakfast, and you just blend them in a blender. That'll work as well. So again, super easy. What I would say is this: don't really change anything. It's 100 calories to 130 max, 3 to call it 5 times a week. That's all you need to do. And I'm going to give you right now the different nuts, and then I'm going to tell you though which one was the least performing out of all of them, and then why you shouldn't overdo it, and which nut might lead to more of a potential health issue that you don't want. Okay, so here we go. Almonds. How many in a 20 gram or so serving? 16 whole almonds. Ideally, these are raw. Ideally, they're not overly roasted. Ideally, they're not salted. You just want literally raw nuts. That's it. Okay, almonds, 16. Walnuts, 4. 4 walnut halves, they call it. 2 whole walnuts, I guess. 12 cashews. 5 pecans. 2 Brazil nuts. 10 hazelnuts. 4 macadamia nuts, which seems super low for macadamia nuts since they're not very big. But I guess if they're smaller, maybe you could have a couple more. But we'll put it this way: it's about 120 calories. That's the easiest way you can look at this as well, depending on whatever package you have. Pistachios, about 12 shelled pistachios. You got to be careful with pistachios because they can contain a lot of mold, just like this last one. Peanuts, you need about 30. But again, you can't eat raw peanuts. And also, peanuts actually were not included on this list. So they did not count to the all-cause mortality during these studies. And so they're not included. But I will say there are some studies showing that peanuts can have some health-based benefits. If it were me and I was really looking for the longevity-based benefits, I would not include peanuts. I would not. A lot of people love to include peanuts because they love peanut butter. They love the taste, but you have to be careful because when you're eating peanut butter, you're adding a lot of other products to that, right? A lot of other oils that are sometimes added with the peanut butter in order to actually make it spreadable. So I certainly would not include that. I would include the previous mentioned ones. And the only one that I'll say, let's be a little bit careful of, is almonds, since for some individuals, it certainly can lead to more oxalate-based issues and potentially kidney stones. Now, they did talk about kidney stones during the studies, and that was with overeating nuts. So going well beyond what we talked about here today, typically at least double the serving that we talked about here. So if you're someone that likes to down a bag of trail mix on a daily basis, well, then it might be possible, not for everybody, but people who are at least susceptible, it could lead more towards kidney stones if you're having difficulty with oxalate load in the body. That sometimes have to do with magnesium and vitamin B6, but I've talked about that on previous shows. So what does this all come down to? For me, again, really simple, really straightforward, one small handful of nuts. I like to keep things on a daily basis. The reason why I do that at least 5 days a week, let's call it Monday through Friday, is because it's difficult to get in a routine in the first place. So if you're like, wait, is today a day that I have nuts or not? Keep it simple. On the side, as I said, of 100 calories of nuts, call it 5 times a week, your Monday through Friday routine, because most people can remember the weekends, right? Saturdays and Sundays are different. And all you're going to do is take that 100 calories of, I prefer macadamia nuts. Like that is the one that I go for. And the reason is that I'm a huge believer in monounsaturated fats. You can make an argument that saturated fats are bad for you, and you can make an argument that saturated fats are good for you, okay? You can make an argument that polyunsaturated fats are bad for you. You can also make an argument that polyunsaturated fats are good for you. You really can. There's tons of studies on it, okay? So if you're standing biased, you can make arguments on both sides. When you look at monounsaturated fats, there's almost no argument that they're bad for you. That's it, unless you overdo anything, right? It's an issue. So your avocados, your olive oil, your macadamia nuts, that's always, like I said, we're on the side of 4 macadamia nuts. Throw them in your smoothie in the morning, add a little bit of thickness to the smoothie. It's actually a delicious taste as well. I think that's absolutely one of the best ways to go. But again, trying to stay unbiased. if you have a health history of cardiovascular disease, and just keep in mind, 1 out of 2 people, unfortunately, will have cardiovascular disease in their lifetime, walnuts was rated number 1 above all else. Now, if you were to look at this list and you were to say, hey, pick one that you really don't like, it would be walnuts for me. That is for sure. So to each our own. I would say if you throw walnuts in a blender with, some blueberries and some vanilla protein powder or whatever it is, you're probably not going to taste the walnuts all that much. So between 2 whole walnuts or 4 walnut halves, might as well throw it in. You can get some benefits. You could even switch it up on a daily basis if you wanted to, and you get those walnuts 3 times a week. Yeah, it could be pretty fantastic. And so, quick study, just wanted to bring this to you. But this is one of those nice things where, you're following a Mediterranean diet, you're following a paleo diet, you're following a vegan diet, you're following even a keto diet. You can add in a handful of nuts a day, small handful. Remember, small handful, and it could lead to tremendous benefits in terms of your longevity and decreasing all-cause mortality. I will link up the studies once again at stephencabral.com/3338. Simple, quick forward tip. Please let me know in the comments if you're going to implement this. I would love to hear from you. If you have a different viewpoint, feel free to put that in the comments as well. Have an amazing day, everybody. Talk with you soon. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.